This is an unprecedented storm, and it's causing us to have an unprecedented response.
This is the city of Asheville in the western mountains of North Carolina, 2,000 feet above sea level and hundreds of miles away from the nearest coastline. But such was the force of Hurricane Helene that nowhere in its path was safe.
Meanwhile, the small community of Steinhatchee, Florida, is described as being, quote, wiped off the map after being devastated by Helene, which came ashore as a Cat 4 hurricane.
Helene, the mounting death toll, at least 182 lives lost, hundreds still unaccounted for.
Hurricane Milton made landfall last night, leaving 3 million homes and businesses without power. In St. Lucie County, 4 people were killed when a dozen tornadoes touched down. Drone footage in Venice captured a destroyed pier, debris left on roads, as well as damaged cars.
And then in St. Petersburg, a crane collapse left a gaping hole in an office building. No injuries were reported. The hurricane also ripped off Tropicana Field. That's
Sarasota County has issued an evacuation for your area.
Write your name on your arm so we can identify you. We're all talking the same way. Get out of these areas because we can replace your home. We can't replace your life.
And this Helene was a wake-up call. This is literally catastrophic. And I can say without any dramatization whatsoever, if you choose to stay in one of those evacuation areas, you're going to die.
If you stay, you will die. You will die. You all die.
If you lived in Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, in particular North Carolina, you are more keenly aware of the weather than you have ever been. On this particular episode of The Soul Trap, we are going to talk about one simple, weird, strange concept that, maybe just a few years ago we would have laughed at. But now we're not laughing so much anymore. And that is weather modification. Has man, or more particularly man and certain beings, has man and his friends, for lack of a better word, figured out a way to modify the weather? And are we seeing the weather being modified? And even more importantly, are we seeing the weather and its modification being weaponized against this world and against people? Well, Satan is called the prince of the powers of the air. Spirit, yes, it's talking about that spiritually, but could that be talking about a physical reality as well? I think probably so. We know that it was Satan who tried to destroy the disciples and Christ with a storm on the boat. A storm called Euroclydon was so powerful and so fierce it was used to kill the Apostle Paul and keep him from going to Rome, which would have limited all of those prison epistles, the influence. You get the picture. There is something powerful about the reality of the words that are used in the Bible, God of this world, the powers of the air. Satan was beheld like lightning, Jesus said, being cast out of heaven. Likewise, we know that man has tried and is actively trying to pierce the veil, to enter into a world of dominion and power that he has no right to enter into, a world that was lost, a dominion that was lost in the Garden of Eden. But now man wants that right back, that dominion back. Man wants to open doors that should never have been opened and wants to attempt to bridge the gulf between the spirit world and our world. One has to ask if H.A.A.R.P, H-A-A.R.P, weather modification, is not one of those interesting little dots by which we see the whole connected to the whole. H.A.A.R.P, weather modification, and such concepts as that used to be strange theories by guys who were just shy of insane. They sat somewhere and on their ham radio tried to warn the world that the government was out there modifying the weather. It's silly, it's weird, it's crazy talk, but not so much anymore. More and more, the reality of the facts are that there is something going on in the skies above us. An intentional attempt to open the skies, to reshape the skies, to open portals and possibly even more than our imagination can fathom. It feels like there are more storms, more disasters, more traumas than there has ever been. Now, is that just because we know more about them? In other words, before we didn't have Fox, we didn't have CNN, and we didn't have the Weather Channel with those guys leaning into fake wind.
Okay, picking it up here in Wilmington, North Carolina, right at the Intracoastal, and we're in one of these bands. This is about as nasty as it's been. We had some bands like this last night, and then the eyewall this morning, we were not on TV. It was the dark and raucous.
So of course we're going to know more about it. No, it could be that, but it doesn't feel that way. The question is it possible that there's something going on, that the feeling that we have is actually corroborating a reality that is out there? As a very close friend said, life is full of tragedy and not everything is a conspiracy. Sometimes a storm is just a storm, and he is right. But then again, just maybe there is something to the way that we feel. Maybe a storm is not just a storm. Maybe we are indeed seeing an uptick in these strange and fierce and powerful changes in the weather because they are, in fact, modifications of the weather. In an article on usafacts.org, the writer says the number of natural weather disasters with damages of more than $1 billion has increased over the last 40 years from an average of 3.3 per year in the 1980s to 17 plus from 2014 to 2023. The National Centers for Environmental Information has kept track of billion-dollar natural disasters since 1980 and cites increased exposure, vulnerability, and climate change as reasons for the increase. Over the 10 years with the most natural disasters, 9 were in the last decade. Since 1980, there have been 395 natural weather disasters in the U.S. with total costs over $1 billion in 2024, including 201 severe storms, 63 tropical cyclones or hurricanes, 44 floods, 31 droughts, 24 winter storms, 23 wildfires, and 9 freezes. In total, these disasters cost $2.77 trillion and took the lives of nearly 17,000 people. The bulk of these events happened post-1990. In the 1980s, there were a total of $33 billion natural disaster events with 3,000 deaths. In the last 10 full years, this number rose to 170, resulting in almost 6,000 deaths. All told, nearly 40% of the billion-dollar climate events that have hit the U.S. since 1980 happened between 2017 and the present day. Now, what you have to ask yourself is, well, is that just the result of warming, global warming, climate change? Obviously, that must be what it is. But I don't think so. There could be something else going on. The truth of the matter is, as far back as 1968, there has been something going on in the skies above us. Weather modification, while it has been relegated to kooks and conspiracy theorists, has been going on for a long time. In an article, Mainstream Media, Massive Weather Manipulation Operations Taking Place Across America, written by Kellen McBreen, April 20th, 2023, states, another, quote, conspiracy turns out to be real. And boy, isn't that the truth lately. It's really not any more conspiracy. It's all seeming to come true. But the writer says another conspiracy turns out to be real. Don't worry. The media says there are no environmental or health ramifications. A recent report by ABC News is catching the attention of many Americans as it calls for a weather modification technique called cloud seeding to save areas like the Colorado River, which is suffering a drought. ABC News chief meteorologist Ginger Z told the audience, quote, there are currently in 2023, 42 cloud seeding projects across the American West, like this one in Utah, where they take planes like this with flares attached. They fly right into the storm and send microscopic silver iodide particles into the cloud. A new article came out. ABC News explains how cloud seeding is being used to modify weather, again stating that there are events like this taking place all across America. Z later told the mainstream news audience that studies since the 1940s have allegedly shown no environmental or health effects in relation to the spraying. Of course, the government's going to spray the sky and then tell you there's no side effects to it whatsoever. Now remember, you've been a fool for believing in chemtrails all along too. But nonetheless, here we are. Asked by her colleagues if there is, quote, anything wrong with manipulating nature like this, Z oddly compared the cloud seeding operation to parking lots and buildings. Quote, that's the question we should have asked when we built every single parking lot and every rooftop. We have been manipulating weather in our area for a long time, she said. Have we? Concluding her statement, Z admitted we need to keep an eye on how people downstream are affected by the weather modification operations. Well, you might want to ask him in North Carolina, and I'm sure Tennessee and Florida have a thing to say about that as well. Some researchers are even using artificial intelligence to program and operate cloud seeding drones. Now, if you don't think that we have a predictive programming, what in the world is Skynet? What in the world is that? And then let's not forget the Matrix and that whole situation there. So what you have is artificial intelligence being used to seed the sky. Does that sound familiar? A.B. Sure was sure to tell viewers that studies have shown that there were no negative environmental impacts. The mainstream media anchors were astonished at the technology being used to manipulate the weather, but even ABC reported back in 2001 and 2016 cloud seeding was being done in the U.S. In 2001, the outlet explained the state of Texas was cloud seeding over 1/3 of the state, a region of some 45 million acres. In 2016, ABC bluntly stated, yes, quote, humans can actually modify the weather, and it's been going on for decades. Here's the lowdown on how cloud seeding works. So it's 2016, how long have we been modifying the weather, and what exactly does that mean? And the question becomes, if we're cloud seeding and admitting to that, what are we doing that we're not admitting to? The article noted, as the speaker Z did, that weather modifications has been going on all over the world for decades, citing the 40s as the period modern cloud seeding began. Now, can you think with me about any other big events that happened in the 40s? Can you think, class? If you can't, that's okay. Come to the front of the class. Professor Soultrap is going to help inform you on this. What big things happened in the 40s? Well, the first big thing that happened prophetically is Israel fulfilled prophecy in Isaiah and other portions by receiving their land and becoming a state after being in the dispersa for 2,000 years. Check 1. Box check 2. Well, we lit off a nuclear bomb, and we still don't understand the ramifications of dabbling in the atomic and subatomic world from that. Well, check 3. We had Roswell, alien, and all of that uptick of the UFOs. All of that began to happen right about the same time we started seeding the sky. Seeding the sky. There's a play on words there, but I'll leave that be for another time. So, the question is, can humans really modify the weather? The answer seems to be yes. Not just yes, but a profound yes. Not just yes, but a yes, it's been going on for a long time. And not just a profound yes, and it's been going on for a long time, but yes, it's actually going on all over the world. Again, attempts to modify weather have been conducted for centuries. Well, hello? Attempts to modify the weather have been conducted for centuries, one article stated. However, modern cloud seeding dates to the 1940s, springing from a discovery at General Electric Labs in New York in 1946, according to North American Weather Consultant's website. Meanwhile, as scientists manipulate the weather without full knowledge of how it could alter the climate elsewhere, the average American is being shamed by the political establishment for drinking out of plastic straws and driving vehicles with gasoline engines, one writer states. It's plausible the 42 known cloud seeding operations and an unknown amount of other weather manipulation schemes are more responsible for recent increase in extreme weather than even global warming.
Thank you, Al Gore. You're super awesome.
The ABC reporter specifically covered the cloud seeding organization in Utah, where it just so happened that a massive avalanche occurred due to inclement weather. Internet users mocked the media for basically confirming what many have called a conspiracy theory. It's a conspiracy theory that the government disperses chemtrails into the sky to affect the weather. That's been a conspiracy theory. You're a nut. You're insane. Those are just regular contrails. No, that big X over the sky that's never been there before. No, that's silly. Oops, well, maybe not. Maybe not.
Please, Pittsburgh! Nothing to see here, please!
One writer said they used to call us conspiracy theorists for saying that they dropped chemicals in the sky to modify the weather. Now they admit that they're doing it. At this point, it feels like the conspiracy theorists are absolutely undefeated on the stage of history validation. February 6th, let's drop back in time, 2001. Here's an article way back in the day. Critics may scoff and skeptics may laugh, but rainmakers are finally emerging from the backwaters of science. For more than half a century, scientists have experimented with wringing more water out of clouds and dumping that priceless moisture on the parched earth. Now, let's pause for a moment. Let's pause for just a moment and let's tie this in with the Bible. When Christ shall come, he will come in the air with clouds. When Christ ascended up into heaven, he was received up in a cloud. You might want to check how often clouds and storm and rain show up in the Bible. There's something otherworldly, connective tissue between clouds and the other dimension. And here we are, tinkering, wringing out of them water. The article says, at least produced inconclusive results, but a mounting body of evidence now suggests that if done properly, cloud seeding can be effective. This was written in 2001, beloved. Some areas like Texas have held in there despite skeptics' sneers, and today cloud seeding is done over about a third of the Lone Star State, a region of 45 million acres. Texas claims to produce more rain over a wider area and for a longer duration because of its weather modification program, according to George Bomar, who wrote his doctoral dissertation on the subject in 1974. But why then hasn't the technology flooded the world? Quote, I think up until now, the limiting factor has been our inability to engender substantive proof that the technology works, at least in the eyes of some in the meteorological community, who remains skeptical, says Bomar, who administers the rain enhancement program for the National Natural Resource Conservation Commission. But over the past few years, the prestigious NCAR has been compiling evidence in hopes of getting to the bottom of the matter. A team of scientists from the center spent 3 years seeding clouds in a drought-stricken northern Mexican state to see if they could finally answer the question of whether it works. The answer seems to be clear, the article states, yes. Although support for a fourth and conclusive year of the project was dropped by the Mexican government because the drought came to an end. Here's what the researchers found. Rainfall from seeded clouds lasted longer than rain from unseeded clouds. The rainfall covered a larger area, and total precipitation was higher, sometimes even doubled, and in many cases, results began just 20 minutes after the seeding. It's interesting. The hurricanes are bigger, the storms are bigger, the flooding is worse, the tornadoes. Is it possible? Is it possible that we have dabbled with more than simply cloud seeding? Are we seeking to have dominion over something that we were never intended to have dominion or even interference in? Some believe that cloud seeding may be a part of the problem of the El Nino effect.
El Nino is Spanish for the Nino.
In the Los Angeles Times, 2002, it stated California has been battling one of the most severe droughts in the state's history, but with El Nino bringing storm clouds in over the Golden State, officials saw an opportunity to make it rain. The Los Angeles County Department of Public Works was delighted at the prospect of some much-needed rain coming to the area and jumped at the chance to help increase the amount of rainfall. Yes, humans can actually modify the weather, and it's been going on for decades. That's what we are facing. Another article states it this way. What if there were a monumental environmental threat that you didn't even know was happening? What if you found out it is affecting your health and that of the people you know and love? What if you knew it was such an enormous problem that it has the potential to destroy our crops, trees, the soil they are grown in, an entire water supply, and whole ecosystem, and that if you didn't act, we could never turn back? Well, we are not talking about fracking, nuclear energy, or oil industry. We're not even talking about climate change. What if it came to us in an insidious way, just as GMO foods have come into our food supply without our knowledge? What if it appeared to be harmless, but it wasn't? And what if it were so cleverly woven into our culture that we didn't even see it anymore? What if it were so masterfully stigmatized and wrapped in controversy that you thought it strange or concerning, you'd be scorned or ignored? Sounds like science fiction, but it's not. It's happening right above you, and it's called geoengineering. You can find articles and debates in which scientists are proposing to dim the sun to slow down climate change using a technique called solar radiation management, SRM. Now, once again, it seems to me I remember something from some movie somewhere about scorching the skies.
We don't know who struck first, us or them, but we know that it was us that scorched the sky.
Their concept is to mimic the dimming and cooling effects of a volcanic eruption. Okay, an existing particulate pollution made by human activity. However, it has been out of the proposal stage for quite some time, and even though officials will not admit it, solar radiation management is already in full-scale operation. SRM sounds like a viable solution to slowing climate change, and scientists have repeated how, quote, cheap it is over and over again, but it comes with a price. In fact, it comes with many. Global climate engineering, geoengineering programs are radically disrupting weather patterns, the article states. Disrupting the hydraulical cycle, causing drought in some areas and flooding in others. Destroying the ozone layer, contaminating the entire planet with toxic fallout from these atmospheric spraying operations. Look, man, we've been saying this for years. For years we have been laughed at and mocked and scoffed. And now it's mainstream. They're intentionally torquing the sky. Climate engineering programs have been fully deployed for many years. There is a mountain of hard science data and film footage to back up this statement. So this is no longer something that's kind of weird. It is the mainstream reality in which we live. The question is, has this been used, the power of the weather, to accomplish nefarious ends? Now, one of the most fascinating things, and we've covered this in a previous podcast, is that some people, some weird, strange, odd people, don't believe that 2 jets brought down 3 buildings, the World Trade Center buildings and building number 7, in exactly the same way. I would agree. The question is, how were those buildings brought down? Some believe explosives from the inside, but there is a theory out there that there was a directed energy beam used to literally cook the buildings. What's interesting is, off the coast of New York on the day of 9/11, the power, the force that would be needed for a directed energy beam could have been harnessed from a hurricane that no one has ever talked about, but was only some 300 miles off the coast of New York. And yet you see or hear or know nothing about it. Nobody was talking about it. Nobody was mentioning it that day. It was on none of the news reports. Why is that? Could it be? Could it be that a region of this country was directly hit on purpose to hinder an election? Could it be that there is an intentional design to make the weather bad, to force through a new culture of climate change and laws that will go around with that, being restrictive, being draconian? Could it be even more that there is something more profound taking place, something more spiritual, something more dimensional, reaching from our world into the next and from theirs into ours? The next time you walk out and look up into the sky, the jury is out, the facts are in, the reality is clear. There are chemtrails, there is cloud seeding, there is weather manipulation. The only question yet to be asked is, are the skies darkening simply because we as silly men are trying to have dominion? Or we as silly men have encountered beings that are already there who hold dominion in the air?
Time now to connect the dots. When we make the news make sense, artificial intelligence is growing at an unprecedented rate. And a small mining town right here in North Carolina is fueling a lot of it. Some of the most critical minerals needed to make computer chips are mined right here in our own backyard. Let's connect the dots. Ultra-high purity quartz is an essential component to the chips that are powering the AI revolution. Right now, 2 mines in the small town of Spruce Pine, about 2 hours northwest of Charlotte, are the only places on the planet you can get this high-quality mineral.
Disaster agency FEMA has been the target of online rumors, including that it is choosing not to help people or that its resources have been diverted to help illegal immigrants. Those claims are false and have been amplified by the likes of Elon Musk and Donald Trump and have led to threats against workers and volunteers. FEMA has created a fact-check page that debunks online misinformation, but it is constantly playing catch-up with the latest rumours. The cause of the hurricane has also led to a conspiracy theory centering around the idea that it was man-made and designed to influence the election.
The Appalachian town of Spruce Pine, America's only source of high-purity quartz, experienced severe flooding, leading to major disruptions in 2 major mining operations. Producers Quartz Corp and Seville Co. both suspended their activities as they assessed the damage from Hurricane Helene, which dumped over 2 feet of rain on the area. Adding to the uncertainty, misinformation is spreading on social media platforms X and TikTok, with some conspiracy theories claiming that the hurricane is a form of weather modification by Democrats in a deliberate attempt by the U.S. government to displace red voters before the election and establish eminent domain on a nearby lithium mining operation also devastated by flooding. These theories seemingly echo online claims during the Maui wildfires of 2023 regarding alleged corruption for land ownership gains.
Viral images claim to reveal what caused the Maui wildfires. Ariane Tilly is here to verify if those images are legit or not.
The wildfires that swept through Maui are the deadliest in U.S. history in more than a century. At least 100 people have died and more than 850 are missing. On social media, people are speculating about what could have caused the fires. One trending theory is that the fire started due to an attack from a directed energy weapon. 3 viral images appearing to show evidence of directed energy weapons have been shared online. But do these images really show that directed energy weapons started the wildfires in Maui? Let's verify.
This newly released footage shows the Dragonfire laser directed energy weapon system in action, and it could be in the hands of military personnel in 5 years' time. It destroys targets with an intense beam of light and has pinpoint accuracy. It's able to hit something the size of a £1 coin from a kilometre away.
So we've been talking about the cost of... There's apparently... The government has the ability, according to the conspiracy theorists, and maybe even some real people, of having these things that they call direct energy weapons. So it's almost like a laser beam. And I know that these are things that they're working on. I know these are things that are probably top secret because it's always been discussed. There's been studies on how to do it, and there's been papers written on it. So the conspiracy theory is that they lit those houses on fire on purpose with direct energy weapons, and if you had a blue house, with a blue ceiling, that the blue ceiling would somehow reflect against this energy weapon and stop your house from burning.
No way.
Oh, yeah. Not only that, but they used, because Biden did some speech, and in his, old kind of senile way, he was talking about how some houses survived because they had the right roof. And everybody's like, see? This is a blue roof.
Former President Trump has led the onslaught of lies. Assertions have been made that property is being confiscated. That's simply not true. Now the claims are getting even more bizarre. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, a congresswoman from Georgia, is now saying the federal government is literally controlling the weather. We're controlling the weather. It's beyond ridiculous. It's got to stop.
Another example is the array of technologies, often referred to collectively as geoengineering, that potentially could help reverse the warming effects of global climate change. One that has gained my personal attention is stratospheric aerosol injection, or SAI, a method of seeding the stratosphere with particles that can help reflect the sun's heat in much the same way that volcanic eruptions do. On the geopolitical side, the technology's potential to alter weather patterns and benefit certain regions of the world at the expense of other regions could trigger sharp opposition by some nations. Alter weather patterns and benefit certain regions of the world at the expense of other regions.
Georgia is now saying the federal government is literally controlling the weather. We're controlling the weather. It's beyond ridiculous. It's got to stop.
Alter weather patterns and benefit certain regions of the world at the expense of other regions.
Experts emphasize that hurricanes are natural occurrences, and there is no credible evidence supporting these theories.
Alter weather patterns and benefit certain regions of the world at the expense of other regions.
Georgia is now saying the federal government is literally controlling the weather.
And there is no credible evidence supporting these theories.
We're controlling the weather. We're controlling the weather.
Alter weather patterns and benefit certain regions of the world at the expense of other regions.
Cool them down at once! With pleasure, Commander!